I think initially we wanted to become an advocate for ADHD because of the experiences that we felt as a couple and as a family as well. And I think it's important to share our experiences with others so that they know that, what they might be going through or, is completely normal, and if other people experience what they're experiencing. So I think it's important to share. Everybody should share their experiences because they can all be different.
I would want to be an advocate because I believe that there's a lot of stereotypes around ADHD, especially around the hyperactive type, which is commonly diagnosed. And I want people to know that it can present differently in all people. It's not the same in everyone. I'm inattentive, so I don't present as many of the hyperactive traits, and that's one of the reasons I got a late diagnosis. So I think awareness is key. So I like to be part of sharing my experience. So with our daughter, we noticed very early on that she was struggling with a lot of kind of like anxieties and things, and we didn't really understand it. It was before I even considered that I might have had ADHD as well at the time. So we were going to the school and saying, look, she's struggling. We're not really sure what's going on. They kind of labelled us as, I don't know, like problematic parents or something. Like we tried to get her the help that she needed, but the school didn't agree that there was an issue. They certainly didn't write it in any other reports, but then they would come back to us and say, oh, she's acting strange in class, or she's daydreaming and she's going off task in her writing. She's writing about other things when she should be sticking to one thing. And this was before even knowing that she had, even suspecting she might have ADHD. So knowing what we know now, we realised that it's probably that she's probably presenting like a lot of women where they're primarily inattentive.
And it's become more obvious now that she started secondary school. So she started year 7 last September, and it's definitely become more obvious since, she has more homework. She needs to be more organised with her work and with her lessons. So we have noticed it's changed. It's quite significant now, really, and we're still on this journey of trying to get her the support that she desperately needs in school, which is still unfortunately proving to be quite a task at the moment. And we're going through the same with our youngest son as well. So our youngest son, again, as Matt had said before, we'd noticed from an early age, so he's just turned 7, and we noticed that he's quite a hyperactive child, whereas Abigail, our daughter, she's more inattentive like Matt. Harry is more hyperactive, and he's got no sense of awareness of roads, danger, things like that. And he's definitely showing signs and symptoms that we have concern about. It's enough for us to be concerned that perhaps this might be disrupting his education. And when we approached the school, which fortunately is in a good school, and the head teacher's got a fantastic background in SEND as well. He's getting some support there, isn't he? But they did confirm that his attainment is quite poor. He tends to be more in reflection, which is like
reflecting on actions, rather. They kind of have more of a reward system, which works with him quite well. Where they're kind of positively reinforcing. He's like goals for the day wouldn't be the same as someone else's. So if they kind of explained to us as Instead of, you know, you've read this many pages today, it will be you've managed to stay in your seat, or, you know, they're trying to reinforce his behaviour in the classroom, but rewarding him for it, which seems to be helping, which is quite a positive thing, I think.
We have just had an assessment, really. So the school have filled out some forms and the typical questionnaires that they send out. And they did say that he was disruptive and you lose his concentration, he's very fidgety, all the classic signs that you'd say are indicators to say he's possibly got ADHD. We went along to the assessment with Harry, and unfortunately the teacher, because of the way that the questionnaires are set up, they didn't say that it happens maybe all the time, and the teachers weren't sort of...
although they wrote a very detailed kind of report, and we thought it kind of backed up what we were saying, because we know they agree with what we're saying, but the clinician felt like it wasn't enough to diagnose him. So we've had this same problem with Abigail because she's not presenting as hyperactive. So one of the things that they looked at in the school was they watched her in a lesson, and the questions were, is she getting up out of seat? Is she hyperactive? Is she paying attention? And it was a lesson that she enjoys, so they're not going to get the same reaction from that lesson as they would, say, if it was maths that she struggles in. So because she's not disruptive, they believe that she's just got anxiety, which is usually, as far as I'm aware, can be a symptom of having ADHD in the first place. Yeah, I have, but I've got strong views on it as well at the same time, because there was somebody who, I didn't know them very well, but I knew I'd spoken to them, someone at school who committed suicide when we just left school, and kind of experiencing that and feeling like, although I didn't really know them, it still affected me because I'd seen them around. They're the same age as me. I was driving past the place where it happened every day on the way to college, and it was just because I knew that I would kind of unintentionally become a victim of that person's, you know, what had happened to them. I wouldn't want to do that to anybody else. So although I've had thoughts before, but I'd never carry it out because I've got a family, and I know that it would impact them more than it would impact me. You know, I wouldn't be worried about it anymore if I wasn't here, but to them it could change the way, you know, their outlook on life or whatever. So I wouldn't want to be that burden on them. So it's not something that I'd ever go through, but I don't think so. With my daughter, she's very much she's different at school. She's very good at masking. So we've come to realise this. She doesn't talk to anybody about the things that she's feeling unless they're asking her, and then she'll kind of, you know, she might talk about some things, but she struggles to organise her things. She still can't tell the time, and she's like 12 years old because she doesn't understand. So it's like she doesn't, it's not important. It's kind of important to her, but not enough to learn it. So she knows, she goes off cues. So in the morning, if Kate goes, oh, boys will go to school, she gets her shoes on, she goes out the door. You know, if we were to get up and go out early, she'd do the same because she doesn't have any, she's kind of disorganised in that sense. She doesn't, homework, she's got a fear of, so she's got like a fear of getting detentions and things, hasn't she? So
yeah,
she'll come home from school, she'll watch TV, and we'll go, it's bedtime, and she'll go, I'll go do my homework. and then she's on her homework till 11 o'clock at night, panicking that she hasn't done it for the next day. And it's those kind of struggles that the school doesn't see, and the meltdowns when she comes home because she's not coping.
It affects her friendships as well.
It's affecting her friendship,
and she's very much a home girl, which is that's not an issue at all. But she does have a lot of friends that want to be around her and want to socialise with her and do things with her, and she's not got that awareness that no. So she's, she won't go out to a friend's house, for example. She won't go and take part in activities at school, whether or not they interest her or not. She doesn't want to.
When she's home, she just doesn't want to do. She's very creative though. She'll spend most of the time drawing, or she's just started crocheting, and she just gets, she kind of like hyper focuses over it. So
until she's
she's very creative. So she's always making something. She's excelling in things like IT. So she's really into coding. In fact, she's doing really well at that, where they're using some kind of Microsoft app where they're coding LEDs or something, and she's getting, I think she got the top results on a test last week at school, but her attainment's down in other subjects. So if she's really interested in something, she excels at it. She's determined, she'll hyper focus on it, and nothing will stop her from doing that if she's interested. But it's when she's not interested, that's when it becomes an issue. So we're struggling, but again, she can be hyperactive around shops, can't she? We've noticed that when she acts, she can be very different at home to how she's presenting at school. And I believe that is because she's masking it quite well. But for myself, I forgot what the question was.
What you wanted to tell people about ADHD?
I would say don't give up on them, because it's not you, it's the system is failing your kids. It's not, you're not failing them, you're trying to do the best you can because you understand. For people who don't really understand it, I would say that if you look at the research, you can see that there is a link between families. I don't know how strong the research is, but I know that it's been suggested that if it's in the family, it tends to be passed down, so it can be hereditary. So I always mention that because I think that's important. I suspect my parents, or at least one of my parents, may have it, and I know that their father probably had it as well, but I will never know that because they wouldn't accept that as a diagnosis. So I believe it comes from somewhere, and if you're a parent with it, then it's worth, if you're starting to see symptoms, your kids get it looked at, because they probably do have it more than likely. As far as I suppose you're better off kind of explaining the relationship side of things, because I was very much inattentive to emotion and just like stepping over the rubbish on the way to work and things like that. Like, the bin needs emptying. So little things like that build up, and I couldn't see that until I was medicated. I couldn't see what she was seeing. So my perspective was very much blurred by the reality that I thought was, my perspective was what I thought the world was like. And, since I've been treated, my eyes have been open massively to the fact that things aren't always as they seem. And, people have different perspectives on everything. So,
yeah, I think Matt was very much I think Matt you probably agree that you maybe felt nagged a lot.
Yeah.
And there was definitely, from what I see now, I didn't see at the time, but I definitely see that there was a parent-child dynamic between me and Matt. So, you know, I felt as though I had to keep on top of everything that he was doing. So, for instance, like finances, everything, every aspect of childcare to do with the kids' education, to do with school, everything I was on top of. I had to remind him so many times about different things. And even getting things like work interviews and things. So I definitely felt parent-child dynamic with Matt, but I also was aware that he felt nagged, and I suppose maybe you could have I felt like I was controlling him, and I get upset about that. But having that conversation with him at the time, he perhaps didn't see that, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
But it was very much, we've been married now for 12 years this year, but we've been together for about 14 years now.
14 years.
And as Matt had mentioned before, ADHD just wasn't in our vocabulary, like
no.
in that, until he got a diagnosis. And I think I can be honest and say that not long before he sought help and got a diagnosis, I did consider divorce, which was not nice at all, because my parents were divorced. And it was something that I'd always said to Matt when we got married, I don't ever want that for us. And, you know, having children together as well, and the impact that has on a family. But I had, and it had really upset me, and I had thought about that. Because I just didn't know what else to do. Although I really love Matt, it was the way that I felt as though it was me. I definitely felt like the problem was me, and for his sake as well as my own, I thought that we were just better off not being together with the arguments. And as Matt had said, it was very much a one-sided argument. You can feel isolated in your own home, especially if your children are the same. You can feel like you're not cared for. You can feel like, you know, just your feelings aren't validated. You don't feel that way, and you feel frustrated a lot.
Difficult really, because I started a new job and they've been quite supportive. I don't think they quite understand what it is that I have, or they don't really look into it. They can definitely see the positives of what I can do. But again, I think it's awareness for people who don't understand ADHD and how it can affect things like progression, being impulsive with words, because I've been very impulsive in a previous job before I was treated. I could be quite, abrupt, and I can be very black and white as well sometimes, so people take offence. I'm probably more controlled with my words now. I'm not as impulsive. But I still have the social aspect of it, which, you know, that could be the autism, or it could be the ADHD. It's a bit of a crossover, but, you know, I'm probably never going to be good on the phone. You know, talking to customers, I'm probably never going to be, and that for example, is I can't concentrate on what someone's saying on the phone if there's background noise, or, you know, it still affects me even when I am medicated. I'm just more likely to answer the phone and not feel bothered by it now, because I know that that's probably one of my weaknesses, but it's probably not going to change, it's not something I can control. Again, starting conversations and speaking to new people, it's still an issue for me, but I think the positives of what I can do far outweigh those things that I can't. So it's just awareness that ADHD isn't just hyperactive young boys disrupting classrooms. It can be, you could have 1,000 thoughts going on in your head and no one else can see it. I have no doubt I'll probably mask in certain situations as well. So when I need to be seen as being social or having to speak to people, I'm probably putting a lot more energy into that situation than someone who can just do quite naturally. So yeah, it's difficult. I don't have any kind of experience of being discriminated against, I suppose. And I think it's just because I'm not disruptive and I get on with what I need to do. I can imagine that there are places that do discriminate still. And again, I think it is just awareness of, it's not behaviour that can be, it's not behaviour that can always be controlled. So I still struggle to get my head around it. So it is a difficult subject, but I think that the more people understand that it's not a weakness and that it's actually a strength is probably, and the awareness of how it can affect people, I think that's kind of key to bringing more understanding, I suppose, in the workplace.
Yeah. I think that schools just need to be more aware that there are subtypes to ADHD, and whereas it's easy to spot boys that show symptoms of ADHD, it's not easy for girls. And I think that schools need to be more aware that there are girls that are struggling, and they do need support, and there should be something in place that can help to support that, because I do have a concern that some girls who present as the inattentive type will get older and their anxieties will develop into adulthood, causing more problems in the future. That's a really great concern of mine with my daughter, particularly, that it's quite heartbreaking to see her struggling, and we see her raw, like Matt has said previously, she'll go to school and she would mask, and she openly admits that she does that, but at the same time she does have her anxieties because she just doesn't understand why in her world, she doesn't have many friends. She's not doing well at school. There's a lot of conversation with children at school about neurodiversity, and some children would say, I've got it, and they haven't. And they obviously push their symptoms onto others. And then others will say, well, I'm not like that, so I can't have that. So there needs to be more awareness for girls, definitely. I'm very concerned about girls with ADHD.
I'd say actually, because I thought about this quite a lot, and I'm the same with girls. It does worry me that there's so many girls out there who've gone through the education system, or adults now who are struggling with stuff, and they've never been picked up because they didn't meet any of the criteria because of the way they present. Yeah. But I also believe that there may also, we know that it's predominantly, it's more likely to be in girls from research that's been done, but it still happens in boys as well, and they will be missed as well as those. So maybe it's more awareness for the inattentive type, and just being aware that girls do present differently, and that you know, for me, it's been eye-opening seeing, you know, I wasn't a girl growing up with inattentive ADHD. So for Abby, our daughter, she's growing up and she's going through things that I never had to go through as a man. And that will also contribute to, you know, her symptoms and, you know, I think that girls probably have it worse off because I think they don't get listened to as much. So, yeah.
I think what we'd like to say to schools is to listen to parents and listen, you know, just because they present differently at school doesn't mean that they don't present differently at home. And I think it's just to listen to our concerns really, and to support us through that, because we definitely feel like sometimes we can't be open about how we feel or what we want to do or what we'd like to see happen in school. We don't sometimes as parents, we don't feel like we've got control over that. And all we've ever wanted for our children, any parent wants for children, is just for them to be able to do their best, go to school feeling happy and feeling confident. And whether or not that means them having a diagnosis or not, they still need to be able to, you know, like I say, just anything that can support them in school if they're feeling a certain way is really important and really crucial.
I would say one thing as well, for education as well, something that we've been told before by schools is that it's not their responsibility to diagnose children, and the doctor will say, you know, it's up to the school to diagnose. You know, we've had that, we've gone back and forth from the GP to the school so many times, and they need to understand that they're both a very important part of the process, because one without the other will result in no diagnosis. So the school needs to support the parents and needs to listen to the concerns, and they need to understand that it might not be their responsibility to diagnose, but they are a big part of the criteria for diagnosis.
Yeah.
So them being a different care setting is part of the you need two that agree to get a diagnosis. If you've only got one, you can't get a diagnosis. As far as I'm aware, that's what it is at the moment. So. That's an interesting question. I suppose I never really thought in terms of. So my initial thoughts when someone suggested that I'll go, I mean, it was off the NHS website as well. So, you know, the NHS is putting out kind of decent information. I don't think that's the issue. But when you go to your GP and they then say, oh, I don't think it's that because I'm like that, you know, they're comparing themselves to you, but they're not you. They haven't got your life experience, you know. Sorry, I got the cat jumping on me. Sorry. They haven't got, they shouldn't be, I suppose they shouldn't be diagnosing something they don't fully understand. They should be forwarding you on to the right people who can do that. And whether that's funding or not, I don't know, but funding's been mentioned a few times with the school and with the GP, and that they need a good enough reason to put your case forward for referral. But in terms of my current treatment, the people that I'm with now they're good when you can get an appointment, that's fine. But sometimes, and I don't think it's because they're not trying, because a lot of them might have the diagnosis themselves, I'm assuming. A lot of people go into that kind of profession because they want to help. So I don't think the people who are being referred to are the issue. I think that I think it would be maybe the underfunding in that area where they're overwhelmed with referrals and they can't get through them quick enough, so the queues are massive. Like I've been on 2-year waiting list for the autism one, and I'm with the people who would be doing that appointment, and they've said that they have got a backlog of people coming in with ADHD, and they want to deal with those diagnoses first, and then they'll go on to the autism diagnosis second.
I think as well, when you had your diagnosis, I think he was told at the end of the assessment that yes, he's got ADHD and he's inattentive, but then it was, we'll schedule an appointment with a nurse so that you can discuss medication. And I think that, I know that on the NHS website they do, there's other forms of treatment to go to work alongside of medication. So, you know, like therapy as well. And I think that it was a big thing to be told, yes, you've got ADHD, and then just to be left just to take the medication and that's it. And, you know, Matt's dealt with it so well, and he's still learning about himself. And, you know, I think that something else should be offered alongside of it for support. And whether that's just talking through it or, you know, Matt has some feelings now where he's like, I'm not sure whether the feelings that I'm experiencing are because my medication might not be working and I need to increase my dosage, or whether it's, you know, it's, I think it's important for Matt to be able to have access to somebody to talk to if he needs to. And so that should definitely be offered alongside. And in terms of the children, my personal view on it is that it seems to be very difficult for children, and we all know that adults are coming forward now. We've had some adults approach us and go, you know, our children are about to go through an assessment, but, you know, thinking about it, I'm like that. And it's like, you know, there's more and more adults coming forward as well as children. And that, like Matt's just said, I think that they're quite overwhelmed at the moment. But my fear is that in schools, they're sort of just pushing it off to the side a little bit. And I don't think, my personal opinion, I don't think the checklists are suitable for all subtypes. They're just not. It's just not... you know, once one's been completed, it's unlikely to be completed again. So, you know, it might not be completed again to adulthood, but then it's on record that it's not. It's been done. Sure. So I don't think that, I think a more suitable type of criteria should be met, and over a period of time, not just one time they do a questionnaire. It should be monitored and a complete assessment made. Really, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think in terms of, I'll start with the relationship side of it. I wouldn't want to wave a magic wand and just completely remove Matt's ADHD. I wouldn't. And there's been no time where I've ever thought that either, because Matt wouldn't be who he is. Otherwise, it would just change. I mean, I say to Matt now, I say, you don't have to take your medication every day. You could have like a break at the weekends, and that's absolutely fine. But then I understand that if Matt would want to take it because he's busy that weekend, or he's got something planned that he wants to follow through with. So I understand that side of it, but I want Matt to know that, you know, it's completely okay for him not to do that when he's around, when he's at home and with his family. but no, there's absolutely nothing I'd change about Matt, and Matt is an incredibly supportive husband above all else. And you know, anything that I wanted to do, he supported me. I'm lucky enough that I can go to university and I can study, and the reason I'm doing that is for us and for our family, and we want to help other families together, and we work with each other and we bounce off each other, and you know, that wouldn't be possible unless Matt had allowed me to do that. And he's a great dad, and I can see that because of him being diagnosed and the struggles and the difficulties that he's been through. He doesn't want that for his children, and I can see that he's desperately trying to get all the support that he can for them, and I'm so proud of him for that. And you know, seeing Matt where he is today from where he was before, he's completely different. You know, he's really happy in the job that he does. He does really well. His employers are really happy with him. He's so much more invested in our family. And you know, I'm massively proud of him for what he's achieved and for what he's done. But there's absolutely nothing I'd change, nothing at all about him. If I could magic it away, I wouldn't.
Should tell the truth. No, for the kids, I wouldn't want them to be any different. I think that the way Abby isn't a problem for us. We're not worried in terms of, you know, Abby's who she is, and our other two are the way they are, and we're happy with who they are and how they are. It's just that I think we wish more that they weren't expected to fit in. Like, you know, their struggles are because the system wants them to be neurotypical, or they want them to act like a typical person would, and they can't, and that's not their fault. So I think for me, it's more about, again, it's awareness, and it's guiding them through life, not feeling like they have to be different for somebody else because it makes someone else uncomfortable. Because I've experienced it from the other side, where I've felt very uncomfortable through much of my childhood and early adulthood, being who I am and not understanding who I was or why I was, and then getting to a point, kind of having that realization and going, I am just trying to fit. I mean, the only reason I'm medicated really is so as I fit in with the way society wants me to be. You know, like it's weird when you say it like that, but that's what it is. So, you know, and for myself, I regret more that I didn't know about it, and so I wouldn't wave a magic wand and remove it, because that's me. I wouldn't change anything. The only thing I wished for is that I knew about it before, and that I could talk about it with, you know, even family members aren't around anymore. I wish that I could have had a conversation with them and said, have you ever felt like that? You know, and just had that kind of opportunity when I was younger to get an understanding from them, so as I can understand how far back it goes and what struggles they've had. And is it, you know, that there's questions left unanswered when you become an adult, and you kind of have to grieve for that when you get your diagnosis, because you're not going to get some of those answers. So yeah, it's very strange.
You kind of said that you want to break the cycle now with
I want
our family.
Break cycle, and so there's like there's somewhere where we can go back to and go, oh yeah, it is in the family, and it is a thing.
And we understand.
And we understand it, yeah.
You can be open, you know, but we want our children to be as open as they can be with us. So if they've got any struggles or difficulties or they feel a certain way, we want it to be a safe place where they can open up to us and that we understand, you know. So whereas perhaps both of us might not have been in an environment where we felt like we could openly talk about our feelings, we don't want that for our children at all. And we want them to be able to know that we're here for them and we do understand from both perspectives as well. So, you know, it's the wider future you look at, isn't it, as well? So, you know, you look at them having future relationships maybe, and if they experience problems like maybe we have, or they felt like perhaps I have, or they felt like Matt has, and we've got that experience now that we can share with them and help them with. So when you say like breaking the cycle, I think you know that's what we mean, but and that's really important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is communication is obviously the biggest part, because if we have a disagreement about something, then he's got his, that goes for all couples, but where it becomes a bit of a problem is where maybe I want Matt to act on something and he's just not doing it. And that's more really a problem on my part, because I'm not communicating clearly enough what we should be doing together to put, you know, so if we're going out, for instance, or we're going on holiday, and I've got my idea about how I want that morning to go before we leave, and Matt's got his idea, but sometimes the communication breaks down when I'm starting to go, oh, but you've not done this and you've not done that. But then it's more me not being clear enough about how we should be organising that day. Sometimes we've got perhaps small cues, haven't we, maybe, where I will ask you and say, are you comfortable with this? So if we need to speak on the telephone and Matt's not comfortable talking on the phone, then I may say to him, we need to do this, but would you like me to do it, or are you happy to do it? So it's not just, I don't want to take over anymore. I don't want to take over everything all the time. I want to ask, you know, if he's comfortable, and if he's not comfortable, that's fine.
Something that we've kind of something I've realised recently was that say if it's the end of the day rather than the beginning of the day, I'm better in the mornings than I am at night. And obviously, if I've been busy, my brain tends to feel like it's a bit zapped, so I've got nothing left to kind of like mentally, I can't process any more information. So it might be just as simple as going to a chip shop and placing an order, and I'm sitting in the car and it's always been me who's gone in, but I'm feeling mentally like I can't cope with this situation right now. So, you know, usually medication's wearing off by that time as well. Kate will now go, oh, I'll go in, because she's kind of spotted maybe the cues that I'll forget things, I'll forget someone's order, or whereas she'll go in and it's not a problem for her. And that's how, like when we go out as well socially, you understand now, don't you, that I'm extremely uncomfortable in that situation. We went to a birthday party recently, and I was quite, although I knew the people who were on the table with us, I felt comfortable with them. Conversation wasn't easy, and I felt very awkward, but she becomes the person who kind of takes over the conversation. So as I'm feeling a little bit more at ease.
I think that in previous workplaces, not where he's at now, but previous workplaces that he's come home and shared maybe a concern about a conversation that might have taken place as a group or independently with Matt, and he's relayed the conversation back to me, and his version, his like perception of that the context of the conversation might have been differently to mine. So it's just offering a different sort of perspective and saying, you know, if he was quite upset about a situation, it's, well, have you perhaps looked at it from this angle, this point of view? And you've started to do a lot of reflection.
Yeah,
now,
I reflect a lot on situations. Yeah.
So he will sort of come back and he'll do that now, and I think that's working quite well, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, we're it's mainly communication, and it's usually just with like small disagreements.
I say reflection, communication, and an awareness of maybe strengths, and I don't like to call them weaknesses, but they're definitely things that I don't do as well at. So I would say so that's pretty self-awareness, I suppose. So you've got, I think, self-awareness, communication, and reflection is very important.
It's great, really, because he's more, like I said earlier, he's more involved now. So now that dynamic has shifted, and we are a partnership now, and it's not the parent-child dynamic anymore. He's got his responsibilities, I've got mine, and you know, we're working really well like that together now, and that's something that we never had before, that is just fell into place, and it's working incredibly well now, which is great. The worst thing for me that's happened is that I was about to leave Matt. I was about to leave Matt to the point where I'd looked into divorce, and I wasn't going to change my mind. There's been a few occasions over the years where I've asked him to leave, and he has left for a short while. And then, of course, because we didn't know he had ADHD, me trying to have a conversation in a more controlled way, so where I'm not upset anymore, or as upset as I was, he wasn't invested in that conversation because he just didn't know how to be. He was avoiding it completely, which made things worse in some ways, and sort of made it quite clear to me, okay, this can't keep happening, and this is obviously what he wants, otherwise he'd be reacting a different way. And that was very much the theme in our relationship for quite a number of years, really. But yeah, that's the worst thing, and I think that I've got a regret now, because I have said things to Matt in the past that are not very nice, and you know, I've had these arguments with him. I have said that he doesn't do enough, and perhaps I know that on occasions he's not felt good enough, because one of the whole reasons he started to investigate was because he thought, what's going on? You know, she's not happy and something's not right. And I do regret that, and I'll regret that perhaps for the rest of my life now, but I'm glad that Matt did what he did, because things would be a lot different now, and not just for him or for me, but for our children,
for kids as well.
And that's heartbreaking to think that it was so close to everything just completely ending, and where we are today is not where we were then. It's we're really happy now together, and you know, that's the most upsetting and most challenging thing that's come out of that for me personally.
My biggest regret, and I've talked about it a lot, I think, is, I don't know if I do, but for me personally, is maybe the years I've missed out on being present as a parent. So obviously Kate was talking about our relationship, which I do regret things that had happened, but I don't think that we could have changed that because of not knowing. So obviously I regret that, but I think things would have been very different if I'd have known. But I do regret not knowing earlier, because although I couldn't control that, there's been times when I look back And I think the times when the kids have come up to me and spoke to me and I haven't heard them. And I think that's probably got to affected our eldest more than the other two. But for instance, I left work at the time because Kate was working. It was only for a short time, but I would watch our eldest now, and I'd keep her in a bouncer and I'd be bouncing her and doing whatever I could so as I could hyper focus on playing video games, or, you know, instead of being attentive, I could have gone out with her and done things with her. And I missed that time with her because I was too distracted by everything else that was going on around me. So that's one of my biggest regrets, and that's why. And there's things like I lost all of my grandparents before they knew that I had anything. So I was very close to my grandmother, and she died during COVID. She didn't know about my diagnosis, and I spent a lot of time with her as a child, and she seemed to understand me. I was like kind of a favourite, I suppose, but she had a lot of time for me, but I didn't have much time for her as an adult. When it was my responsibility to go see her, I kind of stopped because she wasn't on my list of things or places to be, or, you know, like it wasn't in my. If it was now, it would be different. I'd probably be there, you know. I'll be taking the kids around and they'll be building those relationships. But they're the things that I can't get back. And they're as a result of a late diagnosis. So I lost all my grandparents during COVID, you know, apart from
within 18 months.
In 18 months, and I got diagnosed after the past during lockdown. So for me, I wish I could get that time back, but I'll never get that back. So no, for me personally, so I started trialing like the medication that you get put on. It's kind of like the first one to put you on, and that failed. So I didn't really have I knew what it was like. It gave me that feeling of, well, this is what it's like to be normal. I could focus on one thing. I could, you know, it was just, my mind was clear, you know. And when that failed, I had like this kind of fog again. Like you get like it comes back 10 times as worse because you realise what your ADHD actually is like when you're not on it. So I started a new one not long after, and since being on that one, I've been on top of all my finances, which I wasn't before. So all my bills go out on time. If I miss a bill, I've not got a problem picking up the phone and dealing with it, because that was something I used to do. I used to avoid situations. I wasn't so impulsive that I'd go and spend loads of money, but I would spend money and then not, you know, if there was a missed payment, I wouldn't chase it up. So I'd get in debt that way through just ignoring lots of little things. So so I've managed to go back on top of my finances. I kind of come to realise my worth in my employment. So the place that I was at, I'd said, oh, I think I'm probably worth more than, you know, I was on a very basic wage, and I was like, I'm doing quite a lot of stuff. Is there no way I can maybe progress? Or they weren't interested. So I went out, put myself out there, and I managed to increase our income, and I managed to get a better job because of it. It was the first job that I'd actually applied for myself. And I went to the interview, and I'm still there. So like, you know, like I decorated the boys' room. Yeah. You know, I stripped it bare, and I just went, I do a lot more things now than I did before. Yeah. Whereas before it was starting a lot of things and never finishing them. Yeah. So for me, since I've been treated and understand it, I've been able to progress how maybe I felt I should have been able to progress before. as an adult. So that's positive in that, is that it's kind of the whole package of what I'm doing now. I'm more involved in the kids' school, so I haven't got a problem phoning up the school and saying, I'm not happy with this. Can you sort it out? I'll go and, whereas before I just ignore it, wouldn't I? I'd be like, oh, just get on with it, you know. So I'm more present. I think that's the thing. I'm more self-aware and more present than I was before.
Yeah.
So that's a massive positive for me, and I do feel that it's strengthened our relationship, because we worked together well before, even through the difficult times. We were always I think it's because of the trust that we had in each other. We kind of understood each other in that sense, that we knew our capabilities, I suppose. So we've always done well working together, but now that's kind of increased, because now I'm more focused and she understands what the issue was before. So yeah, it's all positive.
Yeah, it's definitely the best thing to come out of it, because maths, as I say, is it's, our relationship is definitely better than it ever was before, which is funny, really, because when you start off on that journey, you can't sort of, going back to when I was crying that time and sort of thinking, do I stay or do I go? And it was that sort of it's just come to where we are now. It's just so much better. And you know, like I say, Matt says he's much more involved in the family, and we're going back to how we perhaps first started in our relationship, where it perhaps wasn't as obvious, maybe, would you say?
Well, it was kind of like hyper-focused on her a bit. I think we realise that now.
So, like, you know, things like, you know, he doesn't forget Valentine's Day or birthdays, and he'll go above and beyond now. And like you say, that there are still challenges that we face, but at least we face them together now, which is the difference, whereas it wasn't before. And I don't feel lonely anymore. And that's definitely the best thing. And I think also what's nice that comes out of it is that, like, seeing Matt's relationship with Abby and seeing his relationship with the children and our relationship as a family, you know, we have these times where we'll have game nights, or we'll go out and spend a lot of time together. We're like, we love going to the Lake District and our walking holidays and spending time together. And it's just lovely. It's, even though we're all different, it's just lovely. And you know, it's just changed for the better, really, hasn't it? That's what I'd say. Yeah. Considering what we believe, you know, we've heard that the divorce rate is quite high for ADHD and non-ADHD marriages. We're determined.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Definitely. So